The emergency alarm pierced through the Naval Medical Center San Diego's trauma ward at precisely 2:37 p.m. on a humid Thursday afternoon. The sound wasn't unusual in itself. This was a military hospital that regularly received combat casualties from across the Pacific Theater. What made the medical staff freeze was the specific code being announced over the intercom. Code Gray, Emergency Bay 3. All available security to Emergency Bay 3. Ashley Martinez had been organizing surgical supplies in the storage room when the alarm sounded. At 24, she was the youngest nurse on the trauma ward, having started just 3 weeks ago after transferring from a small civilian hospital in Kansas. Her petite 5'4" frame and gentle demeanor had already earned her the unfortunate nickname Mouse among the senior staff. She grabbed a handful of gauze packets and hurried toward the commotion, her white sneakers squeaking against the polished floor. The scene that greeted her in Emergency Bay 3 was chaos incarnate. A Navy SEAL, still in his blood-soaked tactical gear, thrashed violently on the gurney as 4 orderlies struggled to hold him down. His eyes, wild and unfocused, swept the room like a cornered predator, searching for escape routes. Blood seeped from multiple wounds across his torso and left leg, but he fought with the desperate strength of someone who viewed medical treatment as a threat worse than death. "Don't touch me!" he roared, his voice raw with something beyond physical pain. His right arm broke free and caught senior nurse Heather Morrison square in the chest, sending the 58-year-old woman stumbling backward into a medical cart. Instruments clattered to the floor in a metallic symphony that only seemed to agitate the wounded SEAL further. Dr. Fletcher strode into the bay with the confidence of someone who had handled countless trauma cases over his 25-year career. His silver hair was perfectly styled despite the late hour, and his white coat bore the insignia marking him as Chief of Surgery. He took one look at the scene and shook his head with visible irritation. "For crying out loud," he muttered loud enough for everyone to hear. "Get me 10 milligrams of midazolam. We'll sedate him if we have to." He glanced around the room, his gaze landing on Ashley with obvious disdain. "Martinez, what are you doing here? This is a restricted trauma case." Ashley stepped forward, still clutching the gauze packets. "I heard the code, sir. I thought I could help." "You thought wrong." Fletcher's tone dripped with condescension. "This isn't some farmer with a broken arm from your little Kansas clinic. This is a trained killer having a psychotic break. Step back and let the adults handle this." The words stung, but Ashley had heard worse over the past 3 weeks. Every shift brought new reminders that she was considered too young, too inexperienced, too naive for the realities of military medicine. She started to retreat when something caught her eye. The way the SEAL's gaze systematically scanned the room wasn't random panic. It was tactical assessment. His positioning on the gurney wasn't thrashing. It was maintaining sight lines to all entrances and exits. 2 burly orderlies, Connor and Blake, moved in from opposite sides to restrain the patient's arms. The SEAL's response was immediate and devastating. His elbow caught Connor in the solar plexus, dropping him instantly. Blake managed to grab the patient's wrist, but found himself flipped over the gurney with a technique that spoke of years of combat training. The orderly hit the floor hard, groaning as he clutched his shoulder. "Master Chief Carter," Fletcher read from the tablet someone handed him, "age 34. Multiple GSWs, possible traumatic brain injury from an IED blast." He looked up with exasperation. "Where's that sedative?" Nurse Heather, having recovered from the earlier blow, prepared the syringe with shaking hands. "Doctor, his vitals are erratic. His blood pressure is through the roof. Sedation might—" "I didn't ask for your medical opinion, Morrison," Fletcher snapped. "Just get me that needle." Ashley watched as Master Chief Carter's eyes tracked the syringe. His muscles tensed in a very specific way. Not the random tension of fear, but the coiled preparation of someone about to execute a trained response. She noticed something else too. Beneath the blood on his left forearm, partially obscured by tactical gear, was a tattoo. Not just any tattoo. The distinctive shape suggested a unit insignia, though she couldn't make out the details through the gore. If you're watching from a military base or have family serving in the armed forces, drop your location in the comments below. We share these stories to honor the silent heroes who serve without recognition. Your support helps us reach more people who need to hear these incredible tales of courage. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss our next story about America's hidden warriors. The medical team regrouped for another attempt. Dr. Fletcher positioned himself at the head of the gurney, directing the remaining orderlies like a general commanding troops. "Morrison, You approach from the left with the sedative. You two, he pointed at two new orderlies who had just arrived, grab his legs. Martinez, since you're so eager to help, go fetch more restraints from supply. But Ashley didn't move. She was watching Carter's breathing pattern, controlled, rhythmic, deliberately slowed despite his apparent agitation. It was a technique she'd seen before, though she couldn't quite place where. His eyes met hers for a brief moment, and in that instant, she saw something that made her stomach tighten. Recognition, not of her specifically, but of something about her, something in the way she stood, the way she observed without interfering. "Martinez!" Fletcher barked. "Are you deaf? I said get the restraints." "Sir," Ashley said quietly, "I don't think restraints are going to help." The entire room turned to stare at her. Fletcher's face flushed red with indignation. "Excuse me? Did the little girl from Kansas just question my medical judgment?" "No, sir," Ashley replied, keeping her voice level. "I'm questioning whether physical restraints are the right approach for someone who's clearly in a hypervigilant state. He's not psychotic, he's tactical. Look at his positioning, his breathing, the way he's maintaining awareness of every person in this room." Fletcher laughed, a harsh sound devoid of humor. "Oh, now she's a psychiatrist, too. 3 weeks on the job, and she thinks she understands combat trauma better than doctors who've been treating it for decades." Heather joined in the mockery. Maybe she watched a documentary about PTSD and thinks she's an expert now. This is what happens when they lower the standards for military nursing positions. Ashley felt heat rise in her cheeks but forced herself to remain calm. She took a step closer to Carter, maintaining a non-threatening posture with her hands visible and open. The wounded SEAL's attention locked onto her immediately, his body tension shifting subtly. "Master Chief," she said softly, speaking directly to him rather than about him, "you're in Naval Medical Center San Diego. You're not in combat anymore. No one here is your enemy." Carter's jaw clenched, and for a moment she thought he might lunge at her. Then he spoke, his voice gravelly and strained. "You don't know what you're talking about." The medical team watched in amazement as Ashley took another step closer, now within striking distance of the dangerous patient they'd been struggling to subdue. She moved with a particular kind of confidence, not the swagger of inexperience, but the measured calm of someone who understood exactly what risk they were taking. Modern military hospitals utilized cutting-edge portable diagnostic equipment that could perform complete blood analysis in under 60 seconds. These compact devices, no larger than a tablet, could detect internal injuries, identify infections, and even match blood types instantly. The same technology that saved lives on battlefields was now being adapted for civilian emergency rooms, revolutionizing trauma care across America. Ashley had noticed one of these devices on the side table, its screen showing Carter's blood work, including something interesting in his white cell count that the others seemed to have missed. "Your lymphocyte count is elevated," Ashley said quietly, glancing at the diagnostic display. "Not from infection, from prolonged stress response." "How long have you been in hypervigilance, Master Chief? 3 days? A week?" Carter's eyes narrowed, studying her with newfound interest. "How does a civilian nurse know about combat stress markers?" Before Ashley could answer, Fletcher intervened with a snort of derision. "She doesn't. She's guessing, trying to sound intelligent. Martinez, step back immediately, or I'll have you removed from this hospital." Ashley ignored him, maintaining eye contact with Carter. She noticed something else, the way he kept his right hand positioned, palm down, fingers spread in a very specific pattern. It was subtle, something only someone familiar with tactical hand signals would recognize. He wasn't randomly positioned, he was maintaining a defensive stance while signaling. But signaling what? The door to the trauma bay burst open, and 3 more people entered. Another doctor, a security guard, and an older man in civilian clothes who moved with the unmistakable bearing of career military, despite his apparent status as a patient. He wore a hospital gown and slippers, but his eyes were sharp, taking in the scene with rapid assessment. "What's all the commotion?" the newly arrived doctor asked. "We can hear this from 3 rooms away." Fletcher gestured dismissively at the scene. "Combat psychosis. We're trying to sedate the patient for treatment, but our newest nurse here thinks she knows better than the entire medical team." The older patient in the hospital gown had positioned himself near the corner, ostensibly out of the way, but Ashley noticed he had clear sight lines to all exits, just like Carter. Something about his presence had changed the wounded SEAL's demeanor slightly, though she couldn't quite identify what. Ashley decided to take a different approach. Moving slowly and deliberately, she reached for a clean gauze pad from her pocket. Carter tensed, ready to strike, but she simply unfolded it and began cleaning a small cut on her own hand, a paper cut from earlier that had been bothering her all shift. The mundane, non-threatening action seemed to confuse everyone, including Carter. "You know," she said conversationally while tending to her minor wound, "in Kandahar, winter of 2019, the field medics used to joke that the hardest part wasn't treating injuries. It was getting operators to admit they were injured in the first place." The room went silent. Carter's entire body language shifted, his eyes locked on Ashley with laser focus. "You weren't in Kandahar." "No," Ashley agreed simply, "but someone I knew was. Someone who told me about a Master Chief who held a position for 17 hours with 3 bullets in him, refusing medical evacuation because his team needed him operational." Dr. Fletcher scoffed loudly. "Oh, please. Now she's making up war stories she heard in a bar. This is pathetic, Martinez. You're embarrassing yourself." But Carter wasn't looking at Fletcher. He was staring at Ashley with an expression that had shifted from hostility to something else. Calculation, perhaps, or recognition of something deeper than surface observation. "Who told you that story?" Carter asked, his voice low and dangerous. Ashley met his gaze steadily. "Does it matter? The point is, you're not in that position anymore. You're here, you're safe, and you're bleeding out while good people are trying to help you. The question is, what are you really protecting?" The older patient in the corner shifted slightly, and Ashley caught him making a subtle hand gesture, military sign language, though she pretended not to notice. Carter saw it too, his jaw tightened with decision. "I need to speak with Colonel Anderson," Carter said suddenly, his voice clear and commanding despite his injuries. Fletcher threw up his hands in exasperation. "Great! Now he wants to speak to his commander. This isn't a military base, Master Chief. This is a hospital. You'll speak to whoever I decide." "Actually," the security guard interrupted, checking his phone, "Colonel Anderson just arrived. He's in the lobby asking about Master Chief Carter." The temperature in the room seemed to shift. Fletcher's bravado faltered slightly, but he recovered quickly. "Well, he can wait until we've treated the patient. Medical priority takes precedence." "No," Carter said firmly. "Colonel first, then treatment." "That's not how this works," Fletcher began, but Ashley cut him off. "Dr. Fletcher, with respect, if having his commanding officer present will help Master Chief Carter accept treatment, wouldn't that be the better medical decision?" Fletcher rounded on her, his face twisted with anger. "Martinez, you've crossed the line for the last time. You're officially suspended pending review. Get out of my trauma bay." Ashley stood her ground. "Sir, I'm trying to help." "You're trying to show off," Heather interjected nastily. "Little girl from nowhere thinking she can play with the big boys. You don't belong here, sweetie. You never did." "Are you starting to piece together Ashley's real identity? Share your theories in the comments. The most accurate guess gets pinned." Remember to like this video if you're feeling that anticipation building. These stories deserve to be heard by millions who appreciate true military valor. The tension in the room was interrupted by the arrival of Colonel Anderson. He was tall, mid-50s, with gray hair cut in a perfect high and tight. His uniform was immaculate despite the late hour, and his presence immediately commanded attention. But it wasn't his rank that made everyone stop. It was the way his eyes immediately found Ashley in the crowd, lingered for a fraction of a second with something like recognition, then moved to Carter. "Master Chief," Anderson said formally, "report." Carter straightened on the gurney, his training overriding his pain. "Sir, objective compromised. Tango is still active. The package is not secure." The medical staff exchanged confused glances, but Ashley understood immediately. Carter wasn't speaking about his injuries. He was giving a field report. Tango meant target. Package meant someone or something being protected. This wasn't combat trauma. This was an ongoing operation. Anderson's expression tightened. "Understood. Status of your injuries?" "Secondary to mission, sir." "Negative. Your status is critical to mission success." Anderson turned to Fletcher. "Doctor, I need this man operational within 48 hours. Fletcher puffed up with self-importance. "Colonel, I don't think you understand. This man has multiple gunshot wounds, possible internal bleeding, and clear psychological trauma. He won't be operational for weeks, possibly months." Anderson's gaze was cold. "Then I need your best medical team on this immediately." "You're looking at it," Fletcher said proudly. "I'm the chief of surgery, and I can assure you—" "What about her?" Anderson nodded toward Ashley. Fletcher actually laughed. Her? She's a 3-week rookie who thinks she knows everything because she worked in some backward clinic. I just suspended her for insubordination. I see. Anderson studied Ashley for a long moment, and she had the strangest feeling he was seeing more than just a young nurse. What's your assessment, nurse? Martinez, Ashley supplied. And my assessment is that Master Chief Carter is maintaining tactical awareness because he believes there's still an active threat. He won't accept treatment until that threat is neutralized or contained. Interesting analysis, Anderson said slowly. Based on what? Ashley gestured to Carter's positioning. His stance, his sight lines, the way he's been signaling. He's not having a psychotic break. He's maintaining operational security. The older patient in the corner made a small sound that might have been approval. Anderson's eyes flicked to him briefly, then back to Ashley. Martinez, Carter said suddenly, his voice cutting through the conversation. That's not your real name. Everyone froze. Ashley felt her heart skip, but kept her expression neutral. I don't know what you mean, Master Chief. Carter's eyes bored into hers. The way you move, the way you observe, the way you knew about the lymphocyte markers. He tried to sit up straighter despite his injuries. You're not a civilian nurse, Fletcher scoffed again. Oh, this is rich. Now she's some kind of secret agent? Martinez, what did you do? Watch too many spy movies and decide to play pretend? But Colonel Anderson wasn't laughing. He was watching Ashley with an intensity that made the air feel thick. The older patient had moved slightly, positioning himself with a better angle to observe everyone's reactions. Ashley made a decision. She reached into her pocket slowly, telegraphing the movement so no one would interpret it as a threat. She pulled out a small challenge coin, the kind military personnel often carried. But instead of showing it to anyone, she simply rolled it across her fingers in a specific pattern, a movement that would look like nervous fidgeting to most observers. Carter's reaction was immediate. His entire body relaxed, tension flowing out of him like water from a broken dam. Echo 9 confirms, he said quietly. Sky is clear. The medical staff looked completely lost, but Anderson stepped forward with sudden urgency. Clear the room, he commanded. Everyone out except Martinez and essential medical personnel. Now wait just a minute, Fletcher protested. This is my trauma bay, and I don't take orders from... Dr. Fletcher, Anderson's voice carried the kind of authority that came from years of command. This is now a classified military matter. You can either comply, or I can have you detained for interfering with a national security operation. Fletcher's mouth opened and closed, like a fish out of water. Heather looked equally stunned, glancing between Ashley and the colonel with growing confusion. This is ridiculous, Fletcher finally managed. She's just a nurse, a nobody from Kansas who can barely... Dr. Fletcher, Ashley said quietly, her entire demeanor shifting subtly. The meek, apologetic rookie nurse seemed to evaporate, replaced by someone with steel in their spine and ice in their veins. I need you to step back and let me work. The transformation was so complete, so unexpected, that Fletcher actually took an involuntary step backward. Ashley moved to Carter's side with newfound authority, her hands moving with practiced efficiency as she began assessing his injuries. 3 entry wounds, she said clinically, her fingers probing with expert precision. 2 through and through, clean. 1 lodged near the 7th rib, pressing but not penetrating the lung cavity. Internal bleeding is minimal. He's been using pressure breathing to minimize hemorrhaging. She glanced at the diagnostic tablet. Blood loss approximately 1.5 liters, manageable with fluid replacement. No signs of sepsis yet, but we need to move quickly. She looked up at Anderson. 48 hours is optimistic but possible if we start immediately. The room was silent except for the beeping of medical equipment. Heather finally found her voice, though it came out as barely more than a whisper. How do you know all that? The scans haven't even been completed. Ashley didn't answer directly. Instead, she began issuing rapid-fire medical orders with the confidence of someone who'd done this dozens of times before. I need 2 units of O-negative blood, a surgical kit, and someone trained in combat wound management. Not standard trauma protocol, combat-specific. Who the hell are you? Fletcher demanded, his face red with a mixture of anger and embarrassment. Before Ashley could respond, the door burst open again. This time, it wasn't medical staff. It was a team of military personnel in tactical gear, weapons at the ready. They swept the room with professional efficiency, checking corners and securing exits. Elite military operators required specialized insurance coverage that went beyond standard policies. These comprehensive plans covered everything from combat injuries to long-term rehabilitation, ensuring warriors and their families were protected during and after service. Premium coverage included emergency medical evacuation from anywhere globally, lifetime disability benefits, and educational funds for dependents, providing complete peace of mind for those who risked everything. The lead operator, face obscured by tactical gear, spoke directly to Anderson. "Sir, perimeter is secure, no sign of hostile activity." "Good," Anderson replied. Then, to everyone's shock, he turned to Ashley and said, "Commander, what are your orders?" The word hung in the air like a thunderclap. Commander. Not nurse, not Martinez. Commander. Fletcher's legs actually wobbled, and he had to grab the edge of a medical cart for support. "Commander," he repeated weakly. Ashley, or whoever she really was, ignored him. She was focused entirely on Carter now, her hands working with surgical precision to stabilize his wounds. "Master Chief, I need you to tell me exactly what happened. Where's the package?" Carter's voice was weak but clear. "Ambush at the safe house. 3 operators down. I got the package out, but they tracked us. Had to dump him at the nearest secure location. Here. He's posing as a patient." Ashley's eyes immediately found the older man in the hospital gown. He gave her a small nod of acknowledgement. The pieces were falling into place. Carter hadn't been brought here randomly. He'd deliberately chosen this hospital because something, or someone, important was already here. "How many hostiles?" Ashley asked, not looking up from her work on Carter's wounds. "Unknown. At least 1 5-man team, possibly more. They'll be coming." Anderson stepped forward. "We need to evacuate immediately." "Negative," Ashley said with quiet authority. "Moving the package now would expose him. They're probably watching the exits." She glanced around the room, her mind clearly working through tactical calculations. "We hold here. This position is defensible, and they won't expect us to stay put." Dr. Fletcher finally found his voice again, though it came out as more of a squeak. "You're military? You've been military this whole time?" Ashley spared him a brief glance. "Lieutenant Commander Ashley Martinez, Naval Special Warfare Development Group." The formal title meant nothing to Fletcher, but Anderson's team certainly recognized it. DEVGRU was the official name for SEAL Team 6. That's impossible," Heather stammered. "You're too young too. You can't be." Ashley returned her attention to Carter's wounds, but her voice carried clearly through the room. "Age and appearance are assets in certain operations, Nurse Morrison. People see what they expect to see. A young, inexperienced nurse who couldn't possibly be a threat." The older patient in the corner finally spoke, his voice carrying a slight Eastern European accent. "Commander Martinez saved my life in Bucharest 2 years ago. I would not be here if not for her expertise." "Who are you?" Fletcher demanded, though his voice lacked its earlier authority. Anderson answered for him. "Dr. Fletcher, meet Dr. Mikhail Volkov, former Russian bioweapons researcher, who defected with critical intelligence about a planned biological attack on U.S. forces. He's been in protective custody for 18 months, and someone very badly wants him dead." The magnitude of the situation was finally sinking in for the medical staff. This wasn't just a trauma case. It was an active military operation happening in their hospital. The truth is about to explode. Can you feel it coming? If your heart is racing right now, smash that like button. Subscribe and turn on all notifications, because what happens next will leave you speechless. Share this with someone who loves military mysteries. Ashley worked on Carter with remarkable efficiency, her hands steady despite the revelation of her true identity. She sutured wounds with the speed and precision of someone who'd done this under fire, probably literally. As she worked, she spoke quietly to Carter. "Bravo 6 status?" she asked. "KIA," Carter replied grimly. "Tango got him at the first checkpoint." "Echo 9? Unknown? Lost comms after the ambush." Ashley nodded, processing the information while continuing her medical work. The other medical staff watched in stunned silence as the rookie nurse they'd dismissed and mocked demonstrated skills that surpassed even their most experienced trauma surgeons. Fletcher, his face now pale instead of red, ventured a question. "How long have you been here? Undercover, I mean." 3 weeks, Ashley replied without looking up. "We had intelligence suggesting an attempt on Dr. Volkov's life. I was inserted as cover, while Master Chief Carter and his team provided external security. But your credentials, Your background check, Heather said weakly. All legitimate, Ashley said with a slight smile. I am a registered nurse. I did work in Kansas. The paperwork is entirely real. It's just not the whole story. Anderson's radio crackled to life. Colonel, we have movement. 2 vehicles approaching from the east, moving in tactical formation. The atmosphere in the room shifted instantly. The military personnel went into high alert, weapons ready. Ashley finished the last suture on Carter's most serious wound and stepped back. Master Chief, can you move? She asked. Carter tested his mobility, wincing but nodding. I'm operational enough. Good. Ashley turned to Fletcher and the medical staff. I need you all to evacuate this wing immediately. Tell everyone it's a chemical spill, anything to clear the area without causing panic. Fletcher started to protest, but Ashley cut him off with a look that could have frozen water. Doctor, in about 5 minutes, this hospital is going to become a combat zone. Every second you waste arguing is a second that puts civilian lives at risk. Move. Now. The authority in her voice was absolute. Fletcher and Heather practically ran from the room, suddenly eager to be anywhere else. Only Anderson, his team, Carter, and Volkov remained. Ashley pulled off her nurse's scrubs, revealing tactical clothing underneath. She'd been wearing body armor this entire time, hidden beneath the loose medical garments. From a concealed holster, she drew a compact pistol, checking it with practiced ease. How did you know I was coming today? Carter asked, grimacing as he forced himself to sit up. I didn't, Ashley admitted, but I knew something was wrong when you missed your check-in this morning. When you arrived with those specific injuries and that level of hypervigilance, I knew the operation had been compromised. Anderson's radio crackled again. Contact, multiple hostiles entering the building through the emergency entrance. Ashley's mind shifted into tactical mode. Colonel, take Dr. Volkov to the surgical suite on the 3rd floor. It's the most defensible position with the limited access points. Master Chief, can you hold the 2nd floor stairwell? Carter grabbed a weapon from one of Anderson's team members. On it. What about you? Anderson asked. Ashley smiled, but it wasn't the gentle smile of the young nurse everyone had dismissed. It was the cold, confident expression of a warrior who'd faced worse odds and survived. I'm going to remind them why attacking a hospital full of Navy SEALs was a very bad idea. Advanced tactical medical training programs were now available online for military personnel and first responders. These certification courses covered combat casualty care, emergency field surgery, and psychological trauma response. Developed by Special Operations veterans, the curriculum provided real-world skills that bridged the gap between basic first aid and professional emergency medicine, preparing responders for any crisis situation. The next few minutes unfolded with the precision of a military operation. Ashley moved through the hospital's corridors like a ghost, using her 3 weeks of familiarity with the layout to her advantage. She'd memorized every door, every blind corner, every potential ambush point during her undercover assignment. The first hostile she encountered was dressed as a janitor, pushing a cart down the hallway, but his movement was wrong, too purposeful, too direct. Real janitors meandered, stopped to check rooms, moved with the casual inefficiency of routine. This man was heading straight for the trauma ward with clear intent. Ashley approached from behind, her footsteps silent on the polished floor. When she was within arm's reach, she struck with surgical precision, a blood choke that dropped him unconscious in seconds without a sound. She zip-tied his hands and feet, then pushed his cart into a supply closet. Her earpiece crackled with Anderson's voice. 2 hostiles neutralized on the 3rd floor. Volkov is secure. Copy, Ashley replied quietly. 3 more entering through the main lobby. She moved toward the lobby, but not directly. 3 weeks of working here had taught her the hospital's hidden pathways, the maintenance corridors, the connections between wings that most staff didn't even know existed. She emerged behind the 3 hostiles just as they were intimidating the reception staff. Federal agents, one was saying, showing fake credentials to the terrified receptionist. We need to speak with a patient named Mikhail Volkov immediately. Ashley recognized the accent, Serbian, maybe Croatian. Definitely not federal agents. She keyed her mic. Master Chief, status, stairwell secure, 2 tangos down. Roger, 3 in the main lobby, moving to engage. She stepped out from behind a pillar, her weapon trained on the lead hostile. Gentlemen, visiting hours are over. They spun toward her, hands moving for weapons, but Ashley had already calculated their positions, their likely reactions, their fields of fire. She dropped to the first one with a double tap to center mass, pivoted to engage the second as he drew his weapon, and put him down before he could aim. The third tried to grab the receptionist as a human shield, but Ashley's shot was perfect, threading the gap between the hostage and the hostile with millimeter precision. The receptionist screamed, but Ashley was already moving, knowing more hostiles would be converging on the sound of gunfire. She grabbed the terrified woman and guided her to safety behind the reception desk. "Stay down and call 911, Ashley instructed. "Tell them there's an active shooter and federal agents are already on scene." Back in the trauma ward, Carter had fortified his position despite his injuries. His tactical mind had identified the optimal defensive position, a corner that gave him clear fields of fire while minimizing his exposure. When two hostiles tried to advance up the stairwell, he neutralized them with controlled bursts from his borrowed rifle. But the blood loss was taking its toll. His vision blurred at the edges, and his hands were starting to shake. He keyed his radio with effort. "Commander, I'm starting to fade here. Hold position, Master Chief. 2 minutes." Those 2 minutes felt like hours. Carter's training kept him functional, even as his body tried to shut down. He thought about his team, Bravo 6, who died protecting Volkov at the first safe house, Echo 9, whose status remained unknown. He thought about the mission, about why protecting one Russian scientist was worth so many American lives. Then he remembered what Volkov had told them during the initial briefing. The biological weapon he'd helped develop could kill millions if deployed. His defection hadn't just brought intelligence, it had brought the only known antidote formula. That knowledge made him the most valuable defector in decades and the most wanted man by several hostile nations. Ashley's voice crackled through his earpiece. "Master Chief, friendlies coming up your 6. Anderson's team appeared, moving in tactical formation. They took over Carter's position, allowing him to slump against the wall, finally able to let others carry the fight. Ashley materialized beside him, immediately checking his wounds. The sutures had held, but he had lost more blood. She started an IV with the same casual efficiency she'd shown earlier, though now Carter understood it came from years of combat medicine, not just hospital training. "You should have told me you were here," Carter said weakly. "Operational security," Ashley replied. "Your team wasn't cleared to know about the inside asset. 3 weeks of watching you get treated like garbage by the staff, and you never broke cover?" Ashley shrugged as she adjusted his IV. "I've endured worse for missions. Besides, their dismissal of me made my cover more effective. No one suspects the person they're busy looking down on." Anderson's voice came over the radio. "Building secure, 8 hostiles neutralized. No friendly casualties beyond Master Chief's initial injuries." But Ashley wasn't relaxing. She knew this was just the first wave. Whoever wanted Volkov dead had resources and determination. They'd try again. "Colonel, we need to move Volkov immediately," she said. "This location is compromised. They'll regroup and come back with a larger force." "Agreed. I'm calling for immediate extraction." As Anderson coordinated the evacuation, Ashley noticed something that made her blood run cold. One of the fallen hostiles had a phone that was still transmitting. She grabbed it, seeing a live video feed streaming to an unknown location. They'd been broadcasting the entire assault. "Colonel," she called urgently, "they've been streaming. They know Volkov is here. They know our faces. They know our defensive capabilities." Anderson cursed under his breath. "How long until extraction?" 15 minutes, came the reply over the radio. "We don't have 15 minutes, Ashley said, her mind racing through tactical calculations. "They'll hit us again before—" The lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in a second later, bathing everything in an eerie red glow. Ashley's trained ear caught the sound of helicopters approaching, military grade, but not American. "Wow! Did you see that coming? If this revelation blew your mind, subscribe immediately for more incredible military stories. Check out our next video about a female sniper who saved an entire battalion. Link in the description. Comment "respect" if Ashley earned your salute today. The darkness lasted only seconds before the emergency generators kicked in, but those seconds told Ashley everything she needed to know. This wasn't a power failure, it was tactical preparation. Someone had cut the main power to disrupt their night vision adjustment when the emergency lighting came on. "They're learning," she said quietly to Anderson. "The second wave won't make the same mistakes." Carter forced himself upright despite the pain. "Commander, I can still fight." "Negative, Master Chief. You've lost too much blood." Ashley did a rapid medical assessment. You'll pass out within minutes if you exert yourself. Then give me something to keep me up, Carter insisted. Adrenaline, epinephrine, whatever you've got. Ashley hesitated. Combat stimulants could keep him functional, but with his injuries, they could also kill him. She thought about the oath she'd taken as a nurse. First, do no harm. Then she thought about the oath she'd taken as a SEAL, never leave a teammate behind. From her medical kit, she produced a small auto-injector. This will keep you operational for maybe 20 minutes. After that, your body will crash hard. You could go into cardiac arrest. 20 minutes is all we need, Carter said, offering his arm. Ashley administered the injection, watching as Carter's eyes sharpened and his posture straightened. The drug was already working, overriding his body's damage signals and flooding him with artificial combat readiness. The sound of helicopters grew louder. Through the windows, Ashley could see 2 black helicopters circling the building like predatory birds. No markings, no identification. Ghost aircraft that officially didn't exist. Repelling, Anderson observed, watching figures fast rope onto the hospital's roof. At least 12 operators. Ashley's mind calculated rapidly. 12 hostiles, plus whatever ground forces they'd brought. Their small team was outnumbered at least 3-1, defending a position that was never meant to withstand a military assault. We need to change the game, she said. Colonel, take Volkov to the basement. The morgue has reinforced walls and limited access points. The morgue? Anderson questioned. Trust me, I've spent 3 weeks learning every inch of this hospital. The morgue is a vault. It was designed to survive earthquakes. It's the most defensible position we have. As Anderson's team moved to evacuate Volkov, Ashley turned to the remaining defenders. 3 of Anderson's men, Carter and herself, against an unknown number of professional killers. The odds were bad, but she'd faced worse. The first wave hit the 3rd floor. Ashley heard the gunfire through the ceiling. Automatic weapons, controlled bursts, professional. Anderson's rear guard was buying them time, but they wouldn't last long. Master Chief, west stairwell, Ashley ordered. Don't try to hold it, just slow them down and fall back. Carter moved with the fluid grace of a warrior whose body was operating on pure training and chemicals, pain temporarily banished by the combat drugs. He reached the stairwell just as the first hostile appeared, dropping him with a precise headshot before falling back to the next defensive position. Ashley positioned herself at a central junction where 3 corridors met, a fatal funnel that would force the attackers to expose themselves. She had grabbed additional magazines from the fallen hostiles, giving her enough ammunition for a sustained fight. The emergency lighting cast everything in hellish red shadows, making target identification difficult. But Ashley had an advantage. She knew this terrain intimately. Every door, every corner, every reflective surface that could give away an enemy's position. The first hostile rounded the corner in a textbook tactical approach, slicing the pie, weapon up, checking corners. Good training, but predictable. Ashley put 2 rounds center mass before he could fully clear the corner. His partner tried to provide covering fire, but Ashley had already displaced, moving to a secondary position she'd identified weeks ago. Her earpiece crackled. Commander, they're in the building. Eastern approach. Copy. How many? 6, maybe 7. Moving fast. Ashley felt the familiar calm of combat settling over her. Time seemed to slow, her senses sharpened, every sound and shadow carrying tactical information. This was what she'd been trained for, not the 3 weeks of pretending to be a helpless rookie nurse, but this, the moment when all the training, all the preparation, distilled into pure action. 2 hostiles tried to flank her position, moving through patient rooms to avoid the fatal funnel. But Ashley had anticipated this, placing a small mirror at an angle that let her see their approach. She waited until they committed to the corridor, then engaged them from an unexpected angle. One went down immediately, the other managed to return fire, his rounds shattering windows and sending glass cascading across the floor. Ashley rolled behind a medical cart, using it as mobile cover while she maneuvered for a better angle. The hostile made the mistake of focusing on where she'd been rather than where she was going. Her next shot caught him in the throat, dropping him instantly. West stairwell breached, Carter reported, his voice steady despite the strain. Falling back to secondary position. The attackers were coordinating, pushing from multiple angles simultaneously. They were trying to overwhelm the defenders through sheer pressure, forcing them to make mistakes. It was a good tactic against most opponents. But Ashley Martinez wasn't most opponents. She'd studied the hospital's architecture obsessively during her undercover assignment, not just learning the layout, but understanding its tactical possibilities. She knew which walls were reinforced, which doors could be barricaded, which windows offered escape routes. She'd turned the entire building into a mental battlefield, and now she was using that knowledge to deadly effect. Moving through maintenance corridors that most staff didn't even know existed, she appeared behind a team of 4 hostiles who thought they were advancing unopposed. Her first burst dropped 2 before the others could react. The third spun toward her, weapon rising, but Ashley had already displaced again, using the hospital's maze-like structure to her advantage. The fourth hostile was smarter. Instead of pursuing, he threw a flashbang grenade down the corridor. The detonation was deafening in the confined space, the bright light overwhelming even through closed eyelids. But Ashley had heard the spoon pop and had already taken cover, counting the seconds until detonation and moving the instant it went off. The hostile expected her to be disoriented, stumbling. Instead, she came around the corner low and fast, putting 3 rounds into him before he could adjust his aim downward. "Eastern approach contained," she reported. 4 tangos down. But even as she spoke, she could hear more helicopters approaching. This wasn't just a hit squad. This was a full military operation. Someone wanted Volkov very, very badly. Carter's voice came over the radio, slurred and breathless. "Commander, I'm starting to crash." The stimulants were wearing off faster than expected, his injuries too severe for the drugs to override for long. Ashley quickly calculated distances and times. She was 30 seconds from Carter's position, but 30 seconds was an eternity in combat. "Hold on, Master Chief. I'm coming to you." She moved through the hospital at a dead sprint, no longer concerned with stealth. Speed was survival now. She found Carter slumped against a wall, his weapon hanging loose in his grip, blood seeping through his bandages. 2 hostiles were advancing on his position, moving carefully but confidently, believing they were approaching a wounded, defenseless target. Ashley proved them wrong with brutal efficiency, dropping both before they even knew she was there. "Master Chief," she said, checking Carter's pulse. It was thready, weak. He was going into shock. Carter's eyes flickered open. Did we get them all?" "Not yet," Ashley admitted. She could hear more movement in the building, boots on stairs, doors being breached. "But we will." She dragged Carter into an empty patient room, barricading the door with a heavy medical bed. It wouldn't stop determined attackers, but it would buy time. She administered another dose of fluids through his IV, trying to stabilize him enough to survive until extraction arrived. Her radio crackled with Anderson's voice. "Commander, we're secure in the morgue, but they're trying to breach. The door won't hold much longer." Ashley's mind raced. She was one person against an unknown number of hostiles, with a dying teammate and a VIP about to be overrun. In any rational assessment, the situation was hopeless, but Navy SEALs didn't operate on rational assessments. They operated on will, training, and the absolute refusal to accept defeat. "Colonel, there's an emergency exit in the morgue's cold storage. It leads to the old wing of the hospital. Take Volkov and go. I'll buy you time." "Negative, Commander. We don't leave anyone behind." "That's an order, Colonel." Ashley's voice carried the kind of authority that came from knowing exactly what needed to be done. "Volkov is the mission. Everything else is secondary." There was a pause, then Anderson's reluctant acknowledgement. "Roger that, Commander." "Give them hell." Ashley turned to Carter, who was barely conscious. "Master Chief, I need you to stay here. Stay quiet. Help will come." Carter grabbed her wrist with surprising strength. "You can't take them all alone." Ashley smiled, the same cold, confident expression she'd worn earlier. "Watch me." She left the room, sealing it behind her, and moved toward the morgue. The hostiles would be concentrated there, focused on breaching the reinforced door. They wouldn't expect someone to attack them from behind. The maintenance tunnels again proved their worth, allowing her to navigate unseen. She emerged in a storage room adjacent to the morgue, where she could hear the hostiles working on the door. Power tools, probably cutting torches. They were determined to get through. Through a ventilation grate, she counted at least 8 operatives, all in full tactical gear. They were positioned professionally, with security watching their 6 while the breach team worked. These weren't thugs or mercenaries. These were trained soldiers, possibly special forces from their movement and positioning. Ashley knew she had one advantage. They thought all the defenders were trapped inside the morgue. They didn't know about her approach from behind. She carefully removed the ventilation grate, moving with the slow, deliberate patience that had been drilled into her during sniper training. Patience was a weapon, her instructor had said. The enemy's expectation of action could be used against them. Setting up her angle of attack, she identified her targets in order of priority. The security element first. They were the most likely to react effectively. Then the breach team, who would be focused on their task and slower to respond. She took a deep breath, centering herself. 8 targets, 30 rounds in her magazine, plus 2 spares. The math was simple, but the execution would require perfection. The first shot took the rear security in the head, dropping him silently. The second guard turned toward his fallen comrade, confused, giving Ashley the split second she needed to put him down too. By the time the breach team realized they were under attack, she'd already eliminated half their number. The remaining hostiles scattered, seeking cover, returning fire at her position. But Ashley had already moved, using the chaos she'd created to reposition. She came at them from a new angle, catching one in the open and dropping him with a controlled pair to the chest. 3 left. They were adapting now, coordinating their response. One provided suppressing fire while the others maneuvered. Good tactics, but Ashley had one more advantage. She knew Anderson and his team were listening. She keyed her mic twice, a prearranged signal. The morgue door burst open from the inside. Anderson's team emerged shooting, catching the remaining hostiles in a crossfire. In seconds, it was over. "Clear," Anderson reported. Ashley emerged from cover, quickly checking the fallen hostiles. All down, all neutralized. But something bothered her. This felt too easy. These operators were too professional to put all their resources in one location. "Colonel," she said urgently, "this was a feint. Where's Volkov?" Anderson's eyes widened with realization. "The cold storage exit. We sent him with 2 men 5 minutes ago." Ashley was already running. The cold storage exit led to the old wing, abandoned, isolated, perfect for an ambush. The attackers hadn't been trying to breach the morgue. They had been driving the defenders to use the only other exit. She sprinted through corridors she'd memorized during her weeks of preparation, taking shortcuts that shaved precious seconds off her response time. Behind her, she could hear Anderson's team following, but they didn't know the hospital like she did. The old wing was dark, most of its lights long since failed. But Ashley didn't slow. She could navigate this building blindfolded if necessary. She heard gunfire ahead, automatic weapons, multiple shooters. Rounding the corner, she saw the ambush in progress. Volkov was pinned down behind an overturned gurney while his 2 guards tried to protect him. 4 hostiles had them trapped, advancing methodically. Ashley didn't hesitate. She engaged the nearest hostile from behind, then rolled to avoid return fire from his teammates. Using the darkness to her advantage, she became a ghost, striking from unexpected angles, never staying in one place long enough to be targeted. One hostile made the mistake of focusing too much on her, forgetting about Volkov's guards. They put him down with coordinated fire. Another tried to flank Ashley but discovered she'd anticipated the move, meeting him with precise shots that ended his advance. The last hostile, realizing the situation was lost, made a desperate move. He pulled a grenade, apparently willing to die if it meant completing his mission. Ashley saw the movement, calculated distances, and blast radius in an instant. She didn't shoot him. That might trigger a dead man's switch. Instead, she shot the grenade itself, a nearly impossible shot in the darkness that required absolute precision. The round struck the grenade's body, deforming it enough that the spoon couldn't release properly. The hostile looked at the malfunctioning grenade in confusion for the split second before Ashley's next shot ended the threat permanently. "Clear," she announced, moving immediately to check on Volkov. The Russian scientist was unharmed, but clearly shaken. "Commander Martinez," he said with genuine gratitude, "once again you saved my life." "It's what I do," Ashley replied simply. Anderson's team arrived, securing the area, but Ashley's radio crackled with a priority message. "Commander, this is Echo 9. I'm alive, but I've got critical intel. The attack on the hospital was a diversion. The real target isn't Volkov. It's the antidote formula. They've got a team heading for the CDC lab where it's stored." Ashley's blood ran cold. If the enemy obtained the antidote formula, they could reverse engineer the biological weapon, making it effectively unstoppable. "Copy, Echo 9. Send coordinates." But even as she received the information, Ashley heard something that made her heart sink. The sound of helicopters leaving. Not arriving. Leaving. The attackers were withdrawing, their real mission apparently complete. She ran to the nearest window, seeing the black helicopters disappearing into the dawn sky. They'd been played. The entire hospital assault, Volkov, everything. It had all been a massive diversion. "Colonel," she said urgently, "we need immediate transport to the CDC facility. Our birds are 15 minutes out." "We don't have 15 minutes." Ashley's mind raced through options. Then she remembered something from her 3 weeks of preparation, the hospital's helicopter, used for medical emergencies. It was on the roof, fueled and ready. "Colonel, secure Volkov and Carter. I'm going after them." "Commander, you can't take on an entire team alone." But Ashley was already running toward the roof. Behind her, she heard Anderson organizing his team, preparing to follow as soon as their transport arrived. But she knew it would be too late. If the enemy reached the CDC lab first, millions could die. She burst onto the roof, finding the medical helicopter exactly where she'd known it would be. The keys were in the ignition, a security violation that now worked in her favor. She'd learned to fly during her SEAL training, though helicopters weren't her specialty, but she didn't need to be an expert pilot. She just needed to get there. As she lifted off, Ashley thought about the past 3 weeks. The humiliation of being treated as incompetent, the constant dismissal of her abilities, the mockery from people who had no idea who she really was. She'd endured it all for the mission, never breaking cover, never letting her true capabilities show. Until today. The helicopter climbed into the dawn sky, chasing after the enemy aircraft. Below she could see the city waking up, oblivious to the danger heading their way. The CDC lab was 12 minutes away by air. The enemy had a 5-minute head start. Ashley pushed the helicopter to its limits, the medical aircraft not designed for the speed she was demanding. But she'd learned long ago that equipment limitations were really just suggestions when lives were on the line. Her radio crackled with Carter's voice, weak but determined. "Commander, Echo 9 reports the enemy has an inside man at the CDC. They'll have access codes." "Copy that," Ashley replied, her hands steady on the controls despite the turbulence. "Do we have any assets at the lab?" "Negative. Skeleton crew overnight. Maybe 3 security guards." 3 security guards against a professional assault team. The odds were impossible. But then again, everyone had thought it the same about her chances in the hospital, and she'd proven them wrong. The CDC facility appeared ahead, its lights blazing in the early morning darkness. Ashley could see the 2 black helicopters on the roof, operators fast roping down. She was too late to prevent their entry, but she wasn't too late to stop them. She brought the medical helicopter in hard and fast, not bothering with a proper landing approach. The enemy hadn't posted roof security, assuming they'd eliminated all pursuit. Their first indication of her arrival was when she deliberately clipped one of their helicopter's tail rotor with her own aircraft's landing skid. The impact sent both helicopters spinning, but Ashley had been prepared for it. She fought the controls, managing a hard landing that jarred every bone in her body, but left her aircraft mostly intact. The enemy helicopter wasn't so lucky, its damaged tail rotor sending it sliding across the roof until it tipped over the edge, falling 12 stories to the street below. Ashley was out of her helicopter before the rotors stopped spinning, her weapon ready. The remaining enemy helicopter's pilots were scrambling to react, but she put rounds through the cockpit windscreen, eliminating that escape route. Now the enemy team was trapped in the building with her. They just didn't know it yet. The medical helicopter's engine screamed in protest as Ashley pushed it beyond its operational limits. Below, the city of San Diego blurred past in the early morning light, its residents completely unaware that death was racing through their skies. The 2 black military helicopters ahead maintained their lead, but Ashley was slowly closing the distance. Her hands gripped on the controls with white-knuckled determination as the CDC facility loomed ahead. Through the helicopter's radio, she could hear fragments of communication from Anderson's team. They were still 15 minutes out, far too late to prevent whatever the enemy had planned. The math was simple and brutal. 12 minutes to the CDC, maybe 5 minutes for the enemy to breach security with their inside man's help. Another 5 to access the Level 4 containment lab where the biological materials were stored. 22 minutes until a weapon that could kill millions fell into the wrong hands. Ashley keyed her radio to the emergency frequency. "CDC Security, this is Lieutenant Commander Martinez, Naval Special Warfare. You have hostiles inbound to your facility. Lock down all Level 4 areas immediately." Static greeted her, then a confused voice. "This is CDC Security. We haven't received any alert from—" "Listen to me very carefully," Ashley interrupted, her voice carrying the authority of someone who'd given life or death commands before. In approximately 8 minutes, 2 helicopters carrying armed hostiles will attempt to breach your facility. They have inside help. Someone on your staff is compromised. Lock down everything now. Ma'am, I need to verify your credentials before. The line went dead. Ashley tried again, but there was no response. Either the enemy was jamming communications, or their inside man had already disabled the CDC's security systems. She pushed the helicopter harder, the distance to the black aircraft ahead shrinking meter by painful meter. The CDC facility appeared ahead, its modern glass and steel structure gleaming in the morning sun. The 2 enemy helicopters were already beginning their descent toward the roof. Ashley could see figures inside preparing to fast rope down. Professional soldiers ready for a quick infiltration. She had maybe 90 seconds before they were on the ground. Ashley made a decision that would have seemed insane to any rational pilot. She pushed the helicopter into a steep dive, aiming not for a landing, but for a collision course with the nearest enemy aircraft. The medical helicopter wasn't armed, but it was still several tons of metal moving at high velocity. Sometimes the best weapon was the one nobody expected you to use. The enemy pilot saw her coming at the last second, trying desperately to evade, but Ashley had anticipated his reaction, adjusting her approach to match his evasive maneuver. The 2 helicopters collided in midair with a grinding shriek of metal on metal. Ashley's reinforced medical helicopter, designed to withstand rough emergency landings, held together. The enemy's military aircraft, lighter and built for speed, didn't fare as well. The impact sent both helicopters spinning wildly. Ashley fought the controls with every ounce of strength and skill she possessed, managing to maintain just enough stability to execute a controlled crash landing on the CDC's roof. The medical helicopter hit hard, sliding across the rooftop in a shower of sparks before coming to rest against an air conditioning unit. The enemy helicopter wasn't as fortunate. Its damaged rotor system failed completely, sending it cartwheeling across the roof before it tipped over the edge. Ashley didn't watch it fall. She was already moving, unbuckling her harness and grabbing her weapon. Through the cracked windscreen, she could see the second enemy helicopter hovering, its occupants torn between completing their mission and responding to the unexpected threat. Ashley exited her damaged aircraft just as the enemy made their decision. Ropes dropped from the hovering helicopter, and black-clad figures began their descent. She counted 8 operatives, all armed, all moving with the fluid efficiency of trained killers. The odds had just gotten worse. Moving low and fast, Ashley reached the roof access door. It was reinforced steel, designed to prevent unauthorized entry, but Ashley had studied the building's schematics during her preparation. She knew the maintenance hatch 20 feet to its left was a weak point. 3 shots from her pistol destroyed the lock mechanism, and she dropped through the opening into the darkness below. The maintenance shaft opened into a mechanical room on the top floor. Ashley landed in a crouch, weapon ready, scanning for threats. The room was empty, filled with the hum of climate control systems and electrical equipment. She moved to the door, cracking it open slightly and peered into the hallway beyond. 2 security guards lay unconscious on the floor, clearly taken down by someone already inside the building. The inside man had been Bali, preparing the way for his associates. Ashley checked the guards quickly, alive but incapacitated, probably drugged. She zip-tied their hands just in case they weren't really unconscious, then moved deeper into the building. The Level 4 containment lab was 7 floors down. Under normal circumstances, reaching it would require passing through multiple security checkpoints, biometric locks, and decontamination chambers. But Ashley had to assume the worst-case scenario, that every security measure had been compromised and the enemy had a clear path to their objective. She found a security terminal in an empty office and quickly accessed the building's surveillance system using override codes she'd memorized during her preparation. The screens filled with camera feeds from throughout the building, and what she saw made her blood run cold. The enemy team was moving through the building with frightening efficiency, bypassing security checkpoints that had been mysteriously left open. But more concerning was what she saw in the Level 4 lab itself. A man in a white lab coat was already there, removing vials from a secured refrigeration unit. The biological agent Volkov had warned them about, along with samples of the antidote formula. Ashley memorized the man's face. Middle-aged, balding, nervous movements suggesting this wasn't his usual line of work. A scientist or technician pressed into service through money, blackmail, or ideology. He was loading the vials into a specialized transport container, one designed to maintain precise temperature and pressure conditions. 8 hostiles converging on the lab, plus the inside man already there with the biological materials. Ashley was outnumbered 9-1, with maybe 5 minutes before they completed their mission and attempted extraction. She needed to even the odds quickly. The building's environmental systems gave her an idea. The Level 4 lab had its own isolated air supply to prevent contamination, but the surrounding areas shared the building's main ventilation system. Ashley accessed the environmental controls and began making adjustments. She couldn't release anything toxic. There were innocent people in the building, but she could make certain areas very uncomfortable. She set the temperature in the eastern stairwell to maximum heating, creating a thermal barrier that would be detected by enemy sensors as a potential fire. The western stairwell she flooded with fire suppression foam, making it impassable without specialized equipment. That left only the central elevators and the northern emergency stairs as viable routes to the Level 4 lab. Ashley positioned herself in a maintenance closet overlooking the elevator bank on the 4th floor. She'd channeled the enemy into a kill zone without them realizing it. They thought they were taking the most direct route. In reality, they were walking into a carefully prepared ambush. The first pair of hostiles emerged from the stairwell, weapons sweeping for threats. Ashley let them pass, waiting for more targets to present themselves. 2 more appeared, then another 2. 6 hostiles in the hallway, moving toward the elevators that would take them to their objective. Ashley burst from the maintenance closet with controlled violence. Her first shots caught the rear guard completely by surprise, both men dropping before they could react. The middle pair spun toward her, weapons rising, but Ashley had already shifted position. She rolled behind a concrete pillar as bullets sparked off the walls where she'd been standing. The remaining hostiles took cover, shouting communications in what sounded like Serbian or Croatian, professional fighters responding to an ambush with trained efficiency. But Ashley had chosen her position carefully. The hallway offered limited cover, and she had angles on most of their positions. One hostile tried to flank her, moving through an adjacent office space. Ashley heard him coming, his tactical gear scraping slightly against a door frame, and was ready when he emerged. 2 shots center mass, and he went down. 3 down, 3 actively engaged. That left 2 more somewhere in the building, plus the inside man in the lab. The odds were improving, but time was running out. Every second she spent in this firefight was a second closer to the enemy completing their mission. Ashley pulled a smoke grenade from one of the fallen hostiles' vest. She pulled the pin and rolled it down the hallway, filling the space with dense gray smoke. Then she moved, not away from the enemy but toward them, using the smoke as concealment. The first hostile she encountered was backing up, trying to get clear of the smoke. He never saw Ashley coming. She struck with her rifle butt, a precise blow to the temple that dropped him unconscious. His partner heard him fall and sprayed bullets through the smoke, but Ashley was already moving, circling around to come at him from behind. The smoke was beginning to clear when she found him, crouched behind an overturned desk, weapon trained on where he thought she'd be. Ashley's shot was precise, not lethal, but incapacitating. She needed at least one of them conscious for interrogation. The last hostile in the hallway had made a smart decision. Instead of staying to fight a losing battle, he'd retreated toward the elevators, probably to warn his teammates and complete the mission. Ashley sprinted after him, catching him just as the elevator doors opened. He spun, weapon rising, but Ashley was already inside his guard. Close quarters combat, the kind she'd trained for thousands of hours. Block, strike, disarm. The hostile's weapon clattered across the floor as Ashley's palm strike sent him stumbling backward into the elevator. She followed, continuing her assault with mechanical precision until he was down and unconscious. The elevator descended toward level 4. Ashley reloaded her weapon and prepared for what would likely be the final confrontation. Through her earpiece, she heard Anderson's voice, tight with urgency. "Martinez, we're 3 minutes out. What's your status?" "Multiple hostiles neutralized, at least 2 more, plus the inside man still active. They're in the level 4 lab with the biological materials. Wait for backup." "Negative. They could be gone in 3 minutes." Ashley cut the connection as the elevator reached level 4. The doors opened onto a decontamination chamber, the final barrier before the lab itself. Under normal circumstances, anyone entering would have to go through a 15-minute decontamination process. But the chamber doors stood open, all safety protocols overridden. Ashley moved through cautiously, weapon ready. The level 4 lab was a study in organized chaos. Equipment had been shoved aside, tables overturned to create defensive positions. The inside man, The nervous scientist she'd seen on the monitors was frantically loading the last of the vials into the transport container. 2 hostiles flanked him, weapons trained on the entrance. They opened fire the moment Ashley appeared, forcing her back into the decontamination chamber. Bullets sparked off the reinforced walls, the sound deafening in the enclosed space. Ashley counted muzzle flashes, calculating positions. The hostiles were using the lab's expensive equipment as cover, making return fire complicated. She couldn't risk destroying the very materials she was trying to protect. "Just a few more seconds," she heard the scientist say, his voice high with stress. "The temperature stabilization is almost complete. Once that container was sealed and stabilized, it could be transported anywhere. The biological weapons and the antidote formula would be in enemy hands, ready to be weaponized or sold to the highest bidder." Ashley had maybe 30 seconds to prevent that. She noticed something the hostiles had overlooked in their haste: the lab's emergency shower system, designed to drench anyone exposed to dangerous materials. The activation lever was on the wall just inside the entrance, within her reach if she was willing to expose herself to enemy fire for a split second. Ashley took a breath, visualizing the movement she needed to make. Then she acted, her hand darting out to yank the lever before pulling back. The response was immediate. High-pressure water burst from dozens of nozzles throughout the lab, drenching everything and everyone inside. The scientist cried out in alarm, trying to protect the transport container from the deluge. The 2 hostiles, their vision obscured by the water, fired blindly at the entrance. But Ashley was already moving, using the water and chaos as cover. She entered the lab low and fast, water streaming off her as she engaged the first hostile. Her shots were precise, taking him down before he could adjust his aim through the artificial rainfall. The second hostile turned toward her, but his boot slipped on the wet floor. A momentary loss of balance that Ashley exploited with lethal efficiency. The scientist stood alone now, clutching the transport container like a lifeline. His white lab coat was soaked through, his glasses askew, his hands shaking with fear. "Please," he begged. "You don't understand. They have my family. If I don't deliver this, they'll kill my wife and daughter." Ashley kept her weapon trained on him while moving closer. "What's your name?" "Dr. Robert Chen. I'm just a research scientist. I study infectious diseases. I never wanted any of this." "Dr. Chen, I understand you're in an impossible situation, but if you give them these materials, millions of families will lose loved ones, including possibly your own. They promised me—" "They lied." Ashley's voice was firm but not unkind. "People who threaten families don't keep promises. But I can help you. We can protect your family, get them to safety. You just need to put down the container and step away." Chen looked at the container in his hands, then at Ashley's steady gaze. She could see the war playing out behind his eyes, fear for his family against the weight of millions of potential deaths. "How do I know you can protect them?" he asked. Ashley pulled out her phone with her free hand, speed-dialing Anderson while keeping her weapon trained on Chen. "Colonel, I need an immediate protection detail dispatched to Dr. Robert Chen's residence. Wife and daughter. Possible hostage situation." Anderson's response was swift. "Already en route. We identified Chen as the probable inside man 20 minutes ago. Team should be at his house now." Ashley put the phone on speaker so Chen could hear. In the background, they could hear radio chatter, then a clear voice. "2 civilians secured, both unharmed. No hostile presence detected." Chen's legs gave out, and he sank to his knees, still clutching the container. "They're safe? They're really safe?" "They're safe," Ashley confirmed. "Now, please, Dr. Chen, put down the container." With shaking hands, Chen set the transport container on the lab bench. Ashley immediately moved to secure it, checking that the vials inside were intact. The biological weapon was there, along with samples of the antidote formula. All accounted for, all secure. Her radio crackled with Anderson's voice. "Martinez, excellent work. We're securing the building now. No hostiles escaped." But before Ashley could respond, her phone buzzed with an incoming message from an unknown number. She opened it to find a video attachment that made her blood run cold. It showed Master Chief Carter in his hospital bed, still unconscious from surgery. Standing beside him was a figure in surgical scrubs and mask, holding a syringe filled with an unknown substance. A text message followed. "Well played, Commander, but the game isn't over. You have something we want. We have someone you need. Pier 47, 1 hour. Come alone or Carter dies." Ashley's jaw tightened. They'd prevented the enemy from taking the biological weapon by force, But now they were using Carter as leverage. She showed the message to Anderson, who had just entered the lab with his team. "It's a trap," Anderson said immediately. "They're trying to salvage their operation." "Of course it's a trap, but they have Carter." "Commander, we can't give them the biological weapon. You know that." Ashley stared at the transport container, her mind racing through possibilities. "Get me a CDC technician and an empty transport container identical to this one. I have an idea." 50 minutes later, Ashley stood at Pier 47, a transport container in her hands. The harbor was busy with morning traffic, fishing boats heading out, cargo vessels loading, the normal commerce of a major port. But Pier 47 itself was isolated, scheduled for demolition, empty except for abandoned warehouses. A black SUV sat idling at the end of the pier. As Ashley approached, the rear door opened and a man stepped out. He was tall, athletic, with the bearing of a soldier and eyes that had seen too much violence. But it was his face that made Ashley's blood run cold, scarred but familiar, impossibly familiar. "Hello, Ashley," the man said, and her heart nearly stopped. "Marcus?" she breathed. "Marcus Reeves? But you're dead. You died in Syria 2 years ago." Marcus Ghost Reeves had been part of her SEAL team, one of the 6 who had died holding that position in Kandahar. Except he hadn't died. That much was now obvious. "The helicopter crash was real," Marcus said, his scarred face twisting into something that might have been a smile. "But I survived. Captured, tortured, left to die in a hole so dark I forgot what sunlight looked like. Do you know what they did to me, Ashley? Do you know what your decision to hold that position cost me? Marcus, I'm sorry. I thought you were dead. We all thought you thought wrong. And while you were playing hero, getting your medals and your promotions, I was learning what real sacrifice meant. I was discovering that our government treats its operators as disposable assets." "That's not true, isn't it?" Marcus pulled out his phone, showing the live feed of Carter's hospital room. "This is what we do, Ashley. We use people, we sacrifice them for the greater good, and then we move on. Well, I'm done being sacrificed. Now it's my turn to take what I need. What do you want, Marcus?" "The biological weapon, obviously. My new employers pay very well for such things. And perhaps a little revenge for Kandahar." Ashley held up the container. "This is what you want? The power to kill millions? The power to prevent anyone from ever putting soldiers in impossible situations again. If everyone has weapons like this, no one will dare use them." "That's not how it works, and you know it," Marcus shrugged. "Perhaps not, but I'm past caring about the greater good. Give me the container, or Carter dies." Ashley handed over the container. Marcus opened it immediately, checking the contents. His expression shifted from satisfaction to rage as he realized what he was looking at. "These vials are empty." "No," Ashley said calmly. "They're filled with a harmless saline solution that looks identical to the real weapon. The actual biological materials are still secure at the CDC." Marcus raised a pistol, pointing it directly at her head. "Then Carter dies." "No, he doesn't." Ashley held up her phone, showing a video feed. It was Carter's hospital room, but now Anderson's team was there, the fake surgeon in custody. "We identified your plant 20 minutes ago. Carter's safe." For a moment, Marcus's scarred face showed genuine surprise. Then he laughed, a bitter sound that held no humor. "Well played, but you've only delayed the inevitable. My employers won't stop. They'll send others." "Who are your employers, Marcus?" He shook his head. "Even I don't know their real names. But they have reach, Ashley, into the highest levels of our government. They know about Ghost Protocol." Ashley's blood went cold. Ghost Protocol was beyond classified, a directive that authorized the elimination of all witnesses to certain black operations if they were compromised. The fact that Marcus knew about it meant his employers had access to the most protected secrets in the military. "Is that what this is about? Testing whether I'd activate Ghost Protocol?" "Among other things. They wanted to know if you'd kill Carter, Volkov, everyone who knew about the biological weapon, if the situation demanded it. Apparently, you passed their test by refusing. I don't understand. Neither do I, entirely. But someone very powerful is playing games with our military, testing our operators, pushing them to their limits. They call themselves the Wellington Group." Before Ashley could respond, the sound of sirens filled the air. Police and federal vehicles were converging on the pier. Marcus smiled grimly. "That's my cue to leave. But Ashley, this isn't over. The Wellington Group has plans for you, for all of us who survived Kandahar. He turned to get back in the SUV, but Ashley grabbed his arm. Marcus, wait. It doesn't have to be this way. You can come back. We can help you. For a moment, his scarred face softened, and she saw a glimpse of the man he used to be. No, Ashley. Some roads can't be walked back. I chose mine when I decided survival was more important than honor. The SUV pulled away, leaving Ashley standing on the empty pier. Around her, law enforcement vehicles screeched to a halt, officers emerging with weapons drawn. But the threat was already gone, disappeared into the morning traffic of San Diego. Anderson approached, his expression grim. Did you get anything useful? A name, the Wellington Group, and confirmation that someone's testing our operators, but I don't know why. We need to report this to the highest levels immediately. Ashley nodded, but something felt wrong. If the Wellington Group had penetrated the highest levels of government, who could they trust with this information? Her phone buzzed with another message from an unknown number. Impressive performance, Commander Martinez, but the real test is just beginning. Check the news. Ashley pulled up a news app on her phone. The leading story made her stomach drop. Biological attack prevented in San Diego, but 3 cities report suspicious deaths. The article detailed how authorities had stopped an attack on the CDC, but simultaneous incidents in New York, Chicago, and Miami had resulted in 7 deaths from an unknown biological agent. The victims had all been security guards at water treatment facilities. My God, Anderson breathed, reading over her shoulder. This wasn't just about San Diego. It was a coordinated attack. Ashley's phone rang. Admiral Mitchell, Chief of Naval Operations. Commander Martinez, I need you in Washington immediately. The Joint Chiefs are convening an emergency session about Ghost Protocol. Your presence has been specifically requested. Sir, I'm needed here. Negative. A plane is waiting for you at North Island. You have 1 hour. The line went dead. Ashley looked at Anderson, who seemed troubled. Ghost Protocol? He asked. Why would they be discussing that now? Because someone wants them to, Ashley replied. The Wellington Group is orchestrating this. They're testing whether our military will sacrifice its own people for security. And if you refuse? Ashley thought about Marcus, broken and turned by torture. About Carter, almost killed as leverage. About the 7 security guards who had died while she was preventing the San Diego attack. Then more people die, she said quietly. But if I agree, we become the enemy we're supposed to fight. Secure your family's future with military-grade life insurance. Our specialized coverage understands the unique risks service members face. Whether deployed overseas or protecting the homeland, ensure your loved ones are protected. Contact our veteran advisors today for a consultation tailored to military families. The flight to Washington took 5 hours, during which Ashley reviewed everything she knew about the Wellington Group. The name appeared nowhere in official databases, but patterns emerged when she looked at recent military operations. Missions that had gone wrong in ways that tested operators' moral boundaries. Situations where soldiers had been forced to choose between following orders and saving lives. Someone was systematically testing the moral flexibility of America's elite warriors, but why? She landed at Andrews Air Force Base to find a full security detail waiting. The ride to the Pentagon was silent, her escorts professional but distant. They knew something she didn't, and their discomfort was palpable. The Joint Chiefs were assembled in a secure conference room, deep within the Pentagon. Admiral Mitchell sat at the head of the table, flanked by the heads of every military branch. But it was the figure at the far end that made Ashley's blood run cold, a distinguished older man in an expensive suit who shouldn't have been in a military briefing. Commander Martinez, the man said, standing as she entered. My name is James Wellington. I believe you've been looking for me. Ashley's hand moved instinctively toward her weapon, but her escorts had already relieved her of it. You're behind all of this. The attack, Marcus, the biological weapon. I'm behind nothing, Wellington interrupted calmly. I'm simply an observer, testing whether our military is prepared for the threats of the future. Admiral Mitchell cleared his throat. Commander, Mr. Wellington is here with full authorization from the Secretary of Defense. He's been conducting an evaluation of our special operations protocols, an evaluation that killed 7 innocent people, an evaluation that prevented the deaths of millions, Wellington countered. If you hadn't responded as efficiently as you did, the biological weapon would have been deployed in every major city. The 7 who died were necessary casualties to prevent a greater catastrophe. Necessary casualties? Ashley repeated, her voice cold. Is that what the 6 SEALs who died in Kandahar were? Necessary casualties? Yes, Wellington said simply. Just as the 200 you saved were necessary saves. Every military decision involves calculating acceptable losses. The question is whether you can make those calculations when they involve people you know. Is that what Ghost Protocol is about? Making it easier to sacrifice our own people? Wellington smiled slightly. Ghost Protocol is about recognizing that sometimes the greatest threat to national security comes from within. Compromised operators, leaked intelligence, moral weakness, these kill more soldiers than enemy bullets. So you test us, push us to our limits to see who breaks. To see who bends without breaking, Wellington corrected. Marcus Reeves broke. He chose survival over duty. You, on the other hand, found a third option. You refused to sacrifice the innocent while still completing the mission. People still died. Fewer than would have died if you'd failed. And far fewer than would have died if you had activated Ghost Protocol. Admiral Mitchell leaned forward. Commander, the question before us is simple. Should Ghost Protocol be expanded to cover situations like the one you face today? Ashley looked around the table at the most powerful military leaders in the country. With respect, sirs, that's the wrong question. Then what's the right question? Wellington asked. The right question is why we're creating situations where killing our own people seems like the only option. The right question is who benefits when American soldiers are forced to choose between their conscience and their duty. The room fell silent. Wellington studied her with something that might have been approval. Very good, Commander. You're beginning to understand the real game being played. This isn't a game. People's lives, everything is a game at this level, Wellington interrupted. The question is whether you were a player or a piece. Today you proved you can be a player. He stood, straightening his suit. Gentlemen, I believe we have our answer. Ghost Protocol should remain as is, a last resort, not a first response. Commander Martinez has demonstrated that creative thinking can find solutions that pure force cannot. As Wellington moved toward the door, he paused beside Ashley. Your friend Marcus is still out there, Commander, still working for people who think differently than I do. They'll come for you again. Let them come, Wellington smiled. Brave words. But remember, everyone has a breaking point. Even you. After he left, Admiral Mitchell dismissed the other Joint Chiefs, leaving just himself and Ashley in the conference room. I apologize for the deception, Commander. We needed to know how you'd respond under extreme pressure. So this whole thing was a test? Not entirely. The biological weapon threat was real. Marcus Reeves is really out there, working for someone. But yes, we used the situation to evaluate your decision-making. And what's your conclusion? Mitchell studied her for a long moment. That you're either the future of special operations or a dangerous idealist who'll get people killed with your unwillingness to make hard choices. I made the hard choice. I chose to find another way. This time. But what about next time, when there really is no other way? Ashley thought about Carter, recovering in his hospital bed. About Volkov, whose knowledge could save or doom millions. About Marcus, broken by torture and turned into an enemy. Then I'll make that choice when I have to, but not before. Mitchell nodded slowly. Very well, Commander. Return to San Diego. Continue your recovery alongside Master Chief Carter, but be ready. This situation with Marcus and the biological weapon isn't over. As Ashley left the Pentagon, her phone buzzed with one final message. Well played, Commander, but Marcus was right about one thing. Everyone has a breaking point. We'll find yours. Ooh. She deleted the message and stepped into the waiting car. The flight back to San Diego gave her time to think, to process everything that had happened. In 3 weeks, she'd gone from posing as a rookie nurse to preventing a biological attack, to confronting the moral complexities of modern warfare. If you've been captivated by Ashley's story and want to see more military thrillers that challenge your expectations, make sure to subscribe to our channel. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our next pulse-pounding story. Your support helps us bring more incredible tales of courage and sacrifice to life. Back at Naval Medical Center San Diego, Ashley found Carter awake and arguing with Heather about his medication schedule. I've been shot before, Carter was saying. I know what I need. Master Chief, with all due respect, you haven't been shot, then used as leverage in a terrorist plot, then nearly assassinated by a fake doctor before. They both looked up as Ashley entered. Carter's face broke into a relieved smile. "Commander, tell them I'm ready for discharge." "You're staying put, Master Chief. That's an order." Carter grumbled, but settled back into his bed. Heather excused herself, but not before giving Ashley a look of profound respect mixed with something else. Perhaps awe, perhaps fear. When they were alone, Carter's expression grew serious. "I heard about Marcus. I'm sorry." "You knew him?" "We served together before he joined your team. Good soldier. What happened to him, what he became, that could happen to any of us." "No," Ashley said firmly. "We all have choices. Marcus made his. And you made yours. Refusing Ghost Protocol, finding another way, that took courage." "Or stupidity," Carter smiled. "Sometimes they're the same thing." Ashley sat beside his bed, suddenly exhausted. The weight of the past 24 hours, the past 3 weeks, crashed over her like a wave. "7 people died because I couldn't stop all the attacks," she said quietly. "How many lived because you stopped the main one?" "That's what Wellington said, acceptable casualties." "He's not wrong, even if he's not right," Carter said. "Every mission has casualties. The trick is making sure they mean something." Before Ashley could respond, Dr. Fletcher entered the room. The surgeon who had dismissed her so completely during her cover assignment now looked at her with obvious uncertainty. "Commander Martinez," he said formally, "I wanted to apologize for my behavior during your assignment here. You treated me exactly as I appeared, Doctor. That was the point. Still, I should have been more professional, more respectful." Ashley studied him. "Tell me, Doctor, if I walked in tomorrow as a rookie nurse, would you treat me differently?" Fletcher considered the question. "Honestly, probably not immediately, but I'd like to think I'd recognize competence regardless of appearance." "Then learn from this. Everyone has hidden depths. Everyone deserves respect until they prove otherwise." Fletcher nodded and left. Carter watched the interaction with interest. "You could destroy his career with a single report," he observed. "What would be the point? He's a good surgeon. He just has blind spots, like we all do." Ashley's phone buzzed. Another unknown number, but this time the message was different. "Your sister in Kansas is safe. We're protecting her. Professional courtesy." Her blood went cold. She hadn't even considered that her family might be targeted. Carter saw her expression. "What is it?" She showed him the message. His face darkened. "They're letting you know they can reach anyone," he said, "or they're genuinely protecting her. Both. That's how people like Wellington operate. The carrot and the stick in the same hand." Over the next several days, Ashley maintained her vigil at the hospital while intelligence services tried to track Marcus and identify his employers beyond the Wellington Group. The biological weapon was secured, its formula locked away, but everyone knew it was only a matter of time before someone else tried to obtain it. Dr. Volkov was moved to a secure facility where he could continue his research under protection. Dr. Chen, after extensive debriefing, was released to rejoin his family, his involvement in the plot forgiven due to the coercion involved. But Marcus remained at large, a ghost in the system, a reminder that even the best soldiers could be turned under the right pressure. On her last day at the hospital, Ashley stood in the same break room where this had all started, where Carter had first tested her, where she'd proven herself while maintaining her cover. Heather found her there. "Commander, can I ask you something?" "Go ahead." "During those 3 weeks, when we were treating you like you were incompetent, how did you not just tell us who you really were?" Ashley smiled slightly. "Because the mission required it. And sometimes the mission requires us to be less than we are, so we can be more when it counts. I don't think I could do that. You'd be surprised what you can do when lives depend on it." As Ashley prepared to leave the hospital for the final time, her phone rang. Admiral Mitchell again. "Commander, we have a situation. 3 biological weapons research facilities have reported security breaches in the last hour. None successful, but the pattern is clear. Marcus? Unknown. But Commander, we need you operational immediately. Are you ready?" Ashley looked back at the hospital where she'd spent 3 weeks pretending to be weak while preparing to be strong, where she'd saved lives by risking her own, where she'd learned that sometimes the hardest battles aren't against enemies, but against the systems we serve. "I'm ready, Admiral." "Good, because this time, we think Marcus isn't working alone. There may be other turned operators out there." The implications were chilling. If Marcus could be turned, if there were others like him, then the entire special operations community was at risk. What do you need me to do? Find them, stop them, and Commander, this time Ghost Protocol is authorized if necessary. Ashley ended the call and stood for a moment in the hospital parking lot. The sun was setting over San Diego, painting the sky in shades of red and gold. Somewhere out there, Marcus was planning his next move. Others like him might be doing the same, but Ashley had proven something important. There was always another way, even when the system said there wasn't. She'd refused to become an executioner, refused to accept that sacrificing the innocent was necessary. Now, she had to prove it again, against enemies who had once been friends, in a war where the battlefield was conscience itself. As she drove away from the hospital, Ashley thought about the message that had started all this. Carter reciting their authentication code, recognizing her despite her cover. That moment had triggered everything that followed, but it had also proven something crucial. No matter how deep the cover, no matter how complete the deception, the truth has a way of surfacing. Marcus might be lost, turned into something unrecognizable. Others might follow his path. But as long as there were operators like Ashley, willing to find another way, willing to refuse the easy brutality of Ghost Protocol, there was hope. The war wasn't over. In many ways, it was just beginning. But Ashley Martinez, the SEAL who had posed as a rookie nurse, who had prevented a biological attack without sacrificing the innocent, who had stood before the Joint Chiefs and refused to become what they wanted her to be, was ready for whatever came next. The last message on her phone was from Carter. "Stay safe, Commander. Remember, we're not just warriors. We're the ones who decide what's worth fighting for." She smiled and deleted the message. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new tests, new attempts to find her breaking point. But tonight, she had saved lives, exposed a conspiracy, and proven that strength wasn't about the ability to destroy. It was about the courage to protect, even when protection came at personal cost. The road ahead stretched into darkness, but Ashley drove forward anyway, because that's what warriors do. They face the darkness, they find the light, and they bring others safely through, even if they have to pretend to be someone else to do it.